The Pope has opened the door to having the United States administration respond. But we did not want peace to reign against Hitler. We did not want peace to reign against other totalitarian adventurism across the globe. Is the President of the United States entitled to respond to the Pope? This is Steve Gibson reporting, author of Logic's Dictate. Please remember to subscribe, like, and follow so that I can continue to bring you this content. A recognition of Tiger Logic and their tremendous production value to all of these podcasts. So, President Trump has responded to some of the commentary on the part of the Pope with respect to certain geopolitical events. And the Democrats and the mainstream media are up in arms, suggesting that the Pope should be better respected and that President Trump is patently being disrespectful for even having the temerity to respond to the Pope. Well, here's the problem. Once the Pope, and he's certainly entitled to express his opinion, opines on geopolitics and comments, for example, on the way that the United States is engaging in geopolitics, then the Pope has opened the door to having the United States administration respond to that commentary. The Pope does not sit immune from having garnered a response to the Pope's commentary. To suggest as well that the Pope is a divine authority on geopolitics stretches credulity and deserves examination at best. This notion that Iran should be entitled to have a nuclear capability, and therefore the United States administration's waging of its conflict to rid Iran of that nuclear capability is somehow improper, is myopic, is candidly unchristian. To allow a regime such as the Iranian regime that believes in martyrdom and the destruction and to the great Satan by way potentially nuclear weapons is not peaceful. This notion that the world in the United States and Israel is not in a proper position to defend itself preemptively against the avowed path that the Iranian regime wants to take is frankly ludicrous. Now, we all can understand that we want to be lovey-dovey and we want peace to reign, and all of that's good. But we did not want peace to reign against Hitler. We did not want peace to reign against other totalitarian adventurism across the globe. And we wanted peaceful, democratic nations to rise against either totalitarian, authoritarian, or terroristic regimes. Now, for the Pope not to recognize these notions and to distinguish between the regimes that foment disrespect to peaceful conduct amongst nations, as opposed to those nations that have fostered for decades the approach towards democratic, peaceful coexistence among nations is again short-sighted and absolutely improper. The Trump administration is well within its rights to say that the Pope's commentary is wrongful, short-sighted, and does not grapple with geopolitical realities at the level that they need to be dealt with. Now, I go back, however, to the Pope's railings against the Soviet Union in the 1980s that helped bring about the changes, arguably, that were experienced in the disintegration of the Soviet Union. That commentary was a commentary of a balanced perspective, of arguing against kind of totalitarian rule over people that effectively enslaved their civilization. Now, could the Soviet Union protest against that as they have back in the 1980s? And did they have the right to do that? Absolutely. Did the Pope in the 1980s certainly have an authoritative standing coming from where the Pope did, Poland at the time, and make the commentary that it did? It absolutely had the right, and it was in its rights. It made proper geopolitical commentary at the time based upon the experience of the Pope under those circumstances. But this Pope does not have any more geopolitical grounding than other politicians, which brings us to the next notion, and that notion is that somehow the Catholic Pope is not associated with a political matrix. Well, if you go through history, you will find that the papacy has been the subject of intense politicking and intense politics. Even modern media has portrayed with good commentary favorable to the portrayal of the political nature of how the Pope is selected and the politics that surrounds the Catholic Church generally. We also have to understand that Catholic priests are not to be held as somehow this shining example of divinity, saintliness, and no politicking. The history of Catholic priests abusing their position is well documented, and while I applaud the fundamental nature of the commentary of loving thy neighbor and striving for peace when we can, this notion that we should embrace non-defensiveness, we should embrace this notion that regimes such as Iran should gain nuclear capability and we should sit back and let it happen because that is what is Christian, is folly, is arguably not Christian, and is something, and we could debate that probably for the next hour, and maybe one day I will. But there's plenty of history within Christianity of defending the faith, defending against those that would do harm to the faithful, whoever the faithful may be. And it is hypocrisy and short-sightedness to suggest that somehow the Pope's authority on geopolitics that makes the argument that the actions by the United States with respect to Iran are in any way, shape, or form wrongful is in some frame of mind shameful, because it's shameful because the Pope has tremendous authority amongst the Pope's followers. And if the Pope is attempting to influence those followers by inserting itself into the political discussion and then say, I'm not playing politics, to say that the attempt to deal with the Iranian regime is not peaceful and wrong, and then not allow the folks that are administering that policy to say, well, hold on a second, there is a legitimate rationale for why we're doing this. That is deeply, deeply concerning. So let's not be short-sighted amongst ourselves and hold the Pope to the same standards that the Pope is holding everyone else to.